Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be for us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. If you'd please honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council Laurie.
Here.
Council Martin.
Here.
Council Madonza.
Here.
Council Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Council Nguyen.
Here.
Council Elliott.
Here.
Council Kennedy.
Here.
Council Leahy.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence and darkened chamber for 2 former City of Lowell public safety officers who played a major role in keeping the city safe for many years. I will talk about one, and I believe Councilor Laurie will talk about the other. The first is former Police Superintendent John Jack Sheehan, who served as Chief of Police from 1982 to 1995. He was a respected and loyal member of the Lowell Police Department for over 28 years. He was the beloved husband of Frances Franny Sheehan, who survives him, and with whom he celebrated their 47th wedding anniversary in August. He attended St. Patrick's Grammar School and Keith Academy. Former Chief Sheehan served his country from 1956 to 1959 as a member of the United States Air Force. Jack was a former silver mittens champion in the 50s and enjoyed playing golf with his many dear friends at Long Meadow Golf Club, where he was a longtime member, as well as a member of the East End Social Club. Besides his wife, he is survived by 2 daughters, Colleen and Carrie Lynn, and his 6 grandchildren and his brother, Garrett Sheehan. He was a credit to the force, and we offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and his many friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Anthony Tony Casella Jr. Mr. Casella, he was born in Lowell, he was 76 years old, he lifelong resident of Lowell. Born in Lowell 1936, he went to Lowell High School, class of 1953. He also went on to earn an associate's degree at North Shore Community College. Mr. Casella was a veteran of the Korean War and Vietnam War, serving in the U.S. Air Force. He attained the rank of Airman First Class. Mr. Casella worked for the Lowell Fire Department for 20 years. Then he worked for the Lowell Firefighters Credit Union. Mr. Casella was a communicant of the Immaculate Conception Church. He's a member of the Holy Name Society, St. Vincent de Paul. He was an adult advisor for the old CYO. He was also a member of the Lowell Retired Firefighters Association, the VFW Post 662. He is survived by his lovely wife, Elizabeth Busby Casella. I happen to have I call him Mr. Casella because that's how I know him. I live next to his son, Anthony, and him and his children are clear reflections of Mr. Casella, the person. I attended the wake, and it was overwhelming. I also went to the funeral. I feel lucky to know Mr. Casella and his 8 children and his 24 grandchildren. And I think he embodies exactly what Lowell was about. Born, raised his children in the community, and he gave back to the community by all of the organizations that he and his children participated in, including being a coach for the Red baseball at Shed Park. But I think that his turnout at the funeral and the wake was a testament to Mr. Casella as a person. I think he was so proud of his son, who was a firefighter, police officers, EMTs, his daughters, and his son eulogized him. The eulogy that he delivered certainly was wonderful. So he treated everyone fairly. He was a dedicated firefighter. He was a hard worker. He worked second jobs when he had to make ends meet, but he always had time for his kids and his community. He loved his family most, and that's what I remember most about seeing him at the cookouts at my neighbor's house, and that's what his son spoke about. So on behalf of the family, I'd like to offer that moment of silence. He will be sadly missed, and may he rest in peace.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to ask for a moment of silence at Darkins Chambers for Norman Belay. Norman was born in Lowell. He was a graduate of St. Joseph's High School, Low Tech College. For many years, he worked as a milkman in the area for Burbach's. He was the manager of AG Hardware, and most recently, he was the maintenance manager at St. Joseph's Residence of the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa. He was a member of the Holy Name Society out of St. Marie's Church, very active in the church. He was a Eucharistic minister. He's survived by his wife Doris and his children Paul, Denise, Donald, Bernard, Jean, and his sister Jean Roy. And he was also the brother of the late Gerard Bailey, who was killed at Iwo Jima. I believe there's a square name for Gerard on Crawford Street in Lowell. I really didn't know Mr. Belay, but like many people in the city, I know his son Paul. And you know the old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if that's true, he was one heck of a guy. So I ask for a moment of silence for him.
Thank you. If you'd all please rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers. Thank you. Under the city clerk's portion of the agenda, we have minutes of the city council meeting of January 15th for acceptance. Motion to approve by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have the city auditor's portion of the agenda, communication, fiscal year 2012 audits, including the management letter. Any discussion? Councilor Mendonça.
It certainly shows a continued improvement in the status of our finances. Many of the items that they had in the letter before have been cleared up. A few new items we need to keep track of, but there'll always be some of those as the accounting standards change. The cover letter asks that we forward this material to the Finance Subcommittee meeting, so I'll make that motion.
Sure. Motion by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
And entertain then a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have the city manager.
Excuse me,
portion of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
I'd like
Laurie.
to suspend the rules and ask if we could move an item, number 8, and accept that now for the, we have some speakers here who want to speak about it publicly.
Motion by Councilor Laurie to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. We have a vote to accept the proposal of J&K Realty Group, LLC, for $265,500 and convey 812 Gorham Street, the former Butler School. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal of J&K Realty Group, LLC, in the amount of $265,500 to purchase property located at 812 Gorham Street, former Butler School, Lowell, and to execute all documents necessary for the transfer of the property. We have some registered speakers.
Yes, we have a registered speaker, Alka McCallum.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me, I just swallowed something. Bottom line is, I wasn't totally aware of this until I read the paper this morning, and...
If you'd just please state your name and
Oh, I'm sorry.
address for the record.
Elkin McCallum, I'm the owner of the Prince property here in Lowell. Again, I saw in the paper tonight that this was coming up for discussion and vote, and I just wanted to come to offer my full support for what in fact is going on. I've owned the Prince property now for 15 years. We took it over from the Borden Food Company, who had bought out the original Pellegrino family at Prince. And I'm proud to say that for a period of almost 12 years, we ran it as a manufacturing plant and employed about 700 people, primarily from the South Lowell area. And it was a great facility, but unfortunately, like most manufacturing in this country, it came to an end. I personally have owned the property from the beginning, leased it back to my corporation. Since 2006, when we shut down the Prince plant, it's been a challenge. It really has, for two reasons. Number one, the plant itself was designed for a single user, for large manufacturing. It's not a very easy plant to subdivide and to put in multiple tenants because of elevator access and shipping access, et cetera. But I've been successful at being able to do it, and I'm proud to say today, or at least through the end of 2013, we have approximately 160 people working in the plant for two separate corporations. We still have about a third of the building to fill out. However, when you look at that property, its handicap is its access. It was designed for trucks. The city was terrific at putting in the Prince Way that allowed trucks full access in and out of the property. We used to run 100, 150 trucks a day in and out of that property, so it was terrific for industrial use. But if you look at that building for use beyond industrial and perhaps retail or other avenues, its access is very problematic. It has no visibility from Gorham Street. Even though it's a huge building, it's hard to find unless you know where you're going. And this plan for the Butler School will do nothing but, in my opinion, not only add value to Gorham Street and to the site, but will also become a very important asset in trying to develop further the end use of that Prince property. Beyond the factory, there's 14 acres of land that's available throughout the site property. As we all know, Mr. Pellegrino at one time ran a restaurant called the Prince Grotto. That was a terrific restaurant. I have been approached by various people in the retail community to look at the potential of retail access. So all I'm saying is that I believe that the city is doing the right thing. I think it will lead to a full development of that site, and I'm not sure what it will be when it's done, but the vote that you're taking and the plans, as I understand them, will do nothing but enhance the opportunity to create more jobs within the city and specifically in that site. So I just wanted to come tonight to voice my full support for what in fact is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCall. What's the wish of the council? Council Lori.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Council Lori, seconded by Council Mendonça. On the motion, Council Mendonça? No, Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager or Mr. Backey, can we just, do we have any more information on this? Like, I can see that they're gonna put a road through there, so it's gonna be two separate parcels, and obviously it's gonna fit the neighborhood, and, I mean, do we, you know,
Sure, yes. We also have a couple of representatives from the actual proposer here who could probably describe what they have, what they intend as well or better than I. But what was attractive to the review committee in making the recommendation to the manager that's now been forwarded on to you folks was a proposal to construct 2 new mixed-use commercial buildings on the site, which will house a mixture of restaurant, retail, and office uses. There would be sufficient parking on the site for them, and in conjunction with the plan, they would also create a new, what would become a public roadway through the site that would provide the access that I think Mr. McCallum was speaking of, that would be significantly beneficial to the future redevelopment of the property that he controls. And that, combined with the fact that the site plan itself incorporates a number of very good siting decisions in terms of placement of the buildings, landscaping, accessibility for both vehicles and pedestrians. It complements the neighborhood very, very well. I should acknowledge, as I think was done in the cover letter, that there was we actually received 3 proposals, but there was a second proposal that was also quite strong. But ultimately, on balance, the factors associated with this proposal significantly outweighed the couple of advantages that, at least in the short term, the other proposal seemed to have.
and then obviously, like in the proposal, do you take into account, I mean, that's the street that we're having a problem with the bridge, so what about traffic as far as deliveries or trucks, or at one end you got, you know, it's very wide and developed, the Thorndike section, in that end, and then past Moore Street, it narrows down, so obviously no problems with that as far as...
Well, I think this site is predominantly served by access to the Lowell connector that occurs north of this site. So the trucking and delivery access to this site would all presumably be, or predominantly presumably would be from the Lowell connector. They would exit and move south on Gorham Street, come to this site, and then return up Gorham Street to the Lowell connector. So there wouldn't be any interaction with the Low Bridge, of which there's been significant discussion in this meeting.
Sure, yeah.
The customers obviously would come from a broader range of directions, but I think that's probably less of an issue with respect to that bridge.
Okay, and is there any impact on the school that's there, the firehouse across the street?
Well, the former Butler School would be demolished as part of this proposal.
Right.
In fact, all 3 of the proposals we received were intended to demolish the building within 65 days of closing.
Yeah.
The existing Cardinal O'Connell School would be a neighbor to this site. We really don't see any adverse impacts from this. We do see one potential positive impact in that if the new roadway is created to connect from Gorham Street back to Livingston and New Hall and ultimately the Prince site beyond, to whatever degree traffic intending to access that site presently uses Carter Ave and travels past the Cardinal O'Connell School in the process, that traffic would presumably be diverted to a more appropriate location, and that would presumably be a benefit to the school. Although I must say that's probably a modest impact, but to the positive.
Okay, and everything's fine with the fire department across the street? It won't affect any?
Yeah, I don't think it really affects any operations they have today, although again, the fire department generally is very supportive of any opportunity to increase accessibility and create new connections that will shorten their travel and response times. So I would see this, again, modest, but I would think it would be, if there is any impact, it would be to the positive for them as well.
All right, and then just one other quick thing. If this development all goes through and we have a nice new street and beautiful buildings. Are there any plans for the firehouse across the street? Aren't they on a gravel parking lot? Should we, are there any plans to take care of our end? I mean, we don't want to have two new buildings and then, you know, a gravel parking lot across the street.
Yeah, it is true that the city owns the vacant lot that's adjacent to the firehouse. I can't speak for either DPW or the fire department as to what their specific plans are, but I do know that I think they're aware of some of the challenges at that location.
All right. It just, if we're trying to beautify, we have to, you know, look all around and try to take care of our business while we have private contractors come in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I actually had called Mr. Bakey about this plan today. What I like about it is, one, that school's going to come down, it's no longer in use. But there's several factors here. One is, you're going to have an access road now into a large industrial, probably one of the largest industrial pieces of land in the city, without one house being taken. Back in the 80s, they put that road in off Moore Street, the access road that I think Mr. McCallum was talking about, and that was a hotbed. They took 3 or 4 homes. This one here, we're taking down the old Butler School of Ware North. The new owner will be taking it down. They'll be putting in a business which will be paying taxes to the city, and you're going to have an access road in with, from what I believe, not taking one piece of real estate in the city. And it will actually open that industrial lot up. We just did the Davis Square area with the lights, so as that road comes off, the exit ramp, it's going to take you just about right to that road. So you'll come from the highway right to the access road. As far as the firehouses, as I said, that's a huge, when I grew up there, we used to play ball down at Chambers. There were hundreds of people walking to work to those companies in the morning. Commodore Food on Lawrence Street, you had the Mills on Crosby, and you had Prince Macaroni. And the nice part about this is you have a firehouse at each exit for an emergency. You have the Lawrence Street Firehouse, which has access on Lawrence Street, and you have the Gorham Street Firehouse, which will have an access road right into that industrial area. So you have 2 firehouses very close by. I think this is a great plan. I was a little concerned when I first saw it. I didn't know if there would be a problem with the neighborhoods taking homes, but it looks like this access road will go into the area without taking one home. So, it looks fine. And plus you have the firehouses there. And as I said, that ramp comes off the low connector, will go right to the ramp. So it looks fine, looks good to me. Thank you.
Councilor Noon, and then Councilor Kennedy, and then Councilor Mendoza.
Thank you, Mayor. I do concur that this is a project. I mean, this is a building that need to be taken down, taken care of, and bring tax bases to the city. With the Butler School, my question may be through you to the managers and maybe to Adam, the Director of DPD, Adam Backey. And is there any historical ramification for this building?
The Butler School building is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. You were asking about historic status?
Right.
And that would prevent the city from taking certain actions, especially if it were to use state or federal funding that would be viewed as detrimental, which really limits our ability to demolish the building ourselves. However, by selling the property to a private party, that eliminates that concern, because the restrictions that would be placed on a public entity as a result of the National Register listing do not carry forward and apply to the private entity. So this is actually a way to address a building that, I mean, normally I would be a very strong advocate for preserving any historic building in the city. Unfortunately, I think this one has gotten to a point where the costs of addressing it are so significant that it really is probably beyond saving, and there are certainly some advantages, clearly some advantages to opening up the site, and all 3 of the proposals we received recognized those advantages and included demolishing the building.
So any ramifications would not be to the business, the developer who's coming in. It doesn't apply to them as it would to the city.
Yeah, it would, the only way it would apply to them is if they were trying to use state or federal funds to do the demolition or a development project that was in conjunction with the demolition. If they use private financing, which the proposer that we're recommending did provide evidence of 100% of the private financing necessary to do the project.
As you mentioned in your statement, that there's another individual who bet for it, and it was listed in the manager report to the council. I happen to know that there's some information not mentioned, and also some information are incorrect, and that said, I pause to think that maybe there's more this council need to know to vote on it. Again, this place need to be, Butler School need to be developed, put into commercial use, put into the tax basis, but just to, a concern that I have is because I happen to know Mr. Chu, there's more to Mr. Chu proposal than mentioned here. So I was wondering, I don't know what to do, thinking of asking that this will refer to the Economic Development Subcommittee to have that, maybe look at it. But at the end of the day, if I have to vote on this, as council chooses to, I'll vote to approve it. I vote to approve this sale that the manager requested. But I just want what's in my conscience to come out, that things not mentioned, think it was there that was not mentioned, and things that mentioned incorrectly. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this project. I think it's economic development. I think that's what we're all striving for here, and modest as it may be, it still is economic development to move in the right direction. I think with this, and I do recognize, and I think it's worth pointing out, that there was another proposal that was, that offered the city more money, about $50,000 roughly more than what this one did. However, one component that this project has that the other one did not is the access road, and the access road is helpful to other properties behind it, and that makes that important. And I think that in the long run, that access road is worth more than the $50,000 that we would be giving up by going ahead with this project as opposed to the one that was higher. It's my understanding that the other proposal that it was asked of them if they would be willing to put in the access road, and they were not willing to do that. And I think the access road is a big component, and certainly an attractive feature for this project. So assuming that all that information is correct, I'm happy to support this project as it is. Thanks.
Councilman Mendonça.
Well, I've long been an advocate of getting this property back into a productive role in private hands if necessary. It would have been nice to save it as a historic structure, but it became clear many years ago that that would no longer be feasible, very impractical for virtually anyone to try and do that. So getting this back into private hands on the tax rolls and providing not only immediate development to improve that corridor, but also providing, as other councils have noted, the future improvements in the neighborhood behind the property is certainly worth a lot. And if we had to take the property to create the access road, it would probably cost us much more than the difference in the two bids. So, given all the information that I have right now, I mean, I'd have to be supportive of the recommendation and get this moving as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. I just want to add that, you know, where I'm new at this, not used to the procedure, but it just seems to me like when we're asked to vote on this, I don't know how much information we're allowed to have, or, you know, if we should get an email, something that says, you know, contact Mr. Bakey's office to find out. I mean, I'm familiar with that area. The kids play baseball down there, so, you know, the access road is great, but, you know, there's a baseball field there, so does that increase traffic, speed, all that stuff? So, and I understand what Councilor Kennedy said. I don't know the details, what the bids were, but how much information do we normally get before we vote on something like this? I guess that would be my question.
Mr. Manager.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We attempt to summarize the proposals that we received and you know, give that to the council, and certainly we're willing to provide additional information and answer any questions, and you know, if that requires us to come back for a subsequent meeting, we're certainly willing to do that. You know, we want the council to feel comfortable with the decision that is being made. But as I say, we've tried to lay out the choices here. As Mr. Bakey indicated, we had 3 people propose, but it really came down to 2 that you know, really met the criteria, and the review committee made the recommendation based upon, you know, sort of all of the factors, not just the immediate dollars and cents, as Councilor Kennedy pointed out, but the long-term benefits of the proposal that's being submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. I'm thrilled that this is before us. This council has established a minimum bid of $265,000. I think when the bids go out, request for proposal, and people bid on this, and they give a synopsis of what their plans are, and there's a committee or whatever that looks it over and sees which one is more advantageous to the neighborhood, to the infrastructure, to many factors that play a role here. And it isn't the highest bidder, it's what is more acceptable in the long run to the surrounding community, to the city as a whole. It's a vacant piece of city property generating no revenue. I'm just sorry this wasn't done some years ago, but better late than never. We're finally going to get maybe $1 million worth of a tax base. But a lot of that information is information that I read in the newspaper. I would have felt that we as a council would have been privy to this information, like Councilor Leahy is saying. I already know a little bit more about it, so I don't have a problem supporting it. But I think what we're asking for is, if this ever takes place again, could we have a little bit more information? These were the 2 bids, or these were the 3 bids. I know that we can come before us right at the last minute and say, Mr. Bakey, could you please get up to the podium and explain this? But I think we should have known this before we sat here this evening to say that the person that got the bid is going to do this, this, widen the road, put a road there, an access road, put landscaping. I don't see anything that said that. I had to read it in the paper. Do you know what I'm saying?
Councilor, there actually is a communication in the packet that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
There is,
Yes.
because I didn't see any paper that said that. But that would be significant for us. If you already put that in there, that's fine, but I didn't see it.
Yeah,
But-
it's all. I understand.
Manager.
I understand, Council. It is in a report that is provided to the council with just laying out the description that speaks to many of those issues, but
To the other bidder as well?
yes.
Then how come Councilor Leahy seemed like he didn't see it either?
I
Because
don't know.
I didn't either.
I can't speak to that. Councilor Kennedy?
Maybe I what?
Councilor Mercia, or
I'm finished.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, I think that what Councilor Mercy and Councilor Lee is saying
see
is,
it.
I mean, I know that we got a report, but in this instance, where we're not going with the highest bidder, I mean, if they were the sole bidder or they were the highest, then this really would be nothing. But with just a couple of, maybe just a site plan, probably would have helped a real lot. And that's just another couple of pages in the package, especially where, you know, people are gonna be asking, well, why didn't you go with the higher one? Why'd you pick this one? And there has to be a reason, and that's not necessarily clear here. That's all.
Councilor Lori.
I had, you know, what Councilor Mercier and Councilor Kennedy saying, there is some truth. I did call Adam Bakey, which is, it says at the bottom to call, and it's talked about an extension of Ellsworth Street, which Mr. Mayor used to live on. And when I drew a line from Ellsworth Street through the property, it was on the right-hand side of the Butler School. And actually, the access road, I think, is going to be coming on the other side, which, when I talked to Mr. Bakey, I says is actually Olive Street. But, you know, I had called ahead, and when I saw the Ellsworth Street, it just made no sense in my mind. But I did call the number, and it actually, I think, lines up more with Olive Street on the other side, which would bring it on the left side, which has made more sense to me. So maybe a map would have been more helpful.
And we can certainly, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I think the council makes a good suggestion there, and we can certainly, in the future, do that. And if the council so wishes, we can put this off tonight if have the opportunity to.
I'm ready.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
So, Mr. Bakey or Mr. Manager, when you indicate in the letter, I guess 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, that the higher proposal does not appear as likely to facilitate additional economic development. What exactly does that mean?
I think that speaks to the roadway that will provide additional access to that back 14 acres of land. The other proposal, just the way that was structured, didn't lend itself to, and hence the proposed developer, indicated that they were not willing to put that type of roadway in, which we think is significant to have that public access back that way.
So both proposals take down the building?
Yes.
And the site design for the second one does not complement the neighborhood?
Correct.
What does that mean?
Mr. Bakey?
Well, in the opinion of the review committee, I'm circulating the plan for the preferred or recommended proposal. There were several significant aspects, but two big aspects of that are quite distinct between the two proposals. One is the much discussed access road, and I think the council will recall that there's been a lot of discussion over the years of the Butler School property, and one of the reasons that the city was sort of holding on, almost banking the Butler School property after the decision about 10 years ago to not construct a school on that site, has been that we have felt that it was a piece of land that could facilitate the redevelopment or expansion of commercial industrial use at the Prince property behind, which we've just heard from the property owner this proposal will actually help to do. And that was one of the reasons the committee felt that from an economic development perspective, this particular proposal was superior to the other. The other issue with respect to sort of compatibility with the neighborhood is that this project does a good job of providing for its parking demand, but doing so in a way that tucks the parking somewhat behind the buildings so that it isn't sort of the dominant feature of the site plan. The other proposal creates a single building of multiple stories, so its footprint is quite a bit smaller, and surrounds it with a considerably larger parking lot with minimal landscaping. And the feeling was that would be, I think the feeling of the review committee was that would be the type of site design that might work well for the user, without question, for the actual development itself in terms of bringing people to the site to utilize that development. But it would do very little positive for the surrounding neighborhood by just placing basically a large parking lot with a building in the middle of it. That was viewed as less attractive for the surrounding neighborhood than this one.
Okay, so I'd like to ask Councilor Noon, what information is not in here that should be included?
Council Noon.
Thank
That's
you, Mayor.
okay, through you.
No, it's fine. I'd be happy to answer. The manager reported that the proposed project will, the one that chose, would add 10 to 20 full-time job. The one that's not chose would add, would create that amount more, if not the amount that suggested here. Not mentioned is that parking issues that the one that's not chose own the adjacent, two adjacent parcel to the lot that will more than ample address the issue of parking, and which is the issue in the city parking for new development. And so those are, and the other, if I may add, that misstated that would have the one that's not chosen would have somewhat a strong evidence of financial inability to develop a project. If you look at, because I happen to notice the ones not chosen own 2 plaza in the city. One on Broadway Plaza, and the others on Brent Street Plaza. They're more than capable, I know, of what I know. If chosen, to develop that parcel. I agree. I totally agree. That's what I said at the end of my first statement, that at the end of the day, should this put up to vote, I'll vote for this project. It's because it brings taxes to the city. My question is that some of the things that not mentioned, that should have been mentioned. I think the breaking point for this is the road. As Adam stated and the manager stated correctly, that the person not chosen would not agree to build that road for the city. And that will, as council candidate stated, long-term benefit to that area in terms of the development, the economic development. All in my first statement is that, what I'm saying is that we need to mention things so that, and need to make clear though, I mean, really, it's not the amount, the high bid. It's not every other things, more job, and it's not the fact that you have a parcel, adjacent parcel to the places, but just say, you not agree to build road. Because building that road is what led to long-term benefit to the city. Because of that, as I said, this come up to vote tonight, I will vote for it. Because again, it got rid of that eyesore to the city, bring tax bases to the city. And of course, the long-term tie to the Prince property. That's all I have, Councilor Elliott. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Noon. I mean, it's more information clearly is better, but I do agree with my colleagues that it's been an eyesore in that neighborhood, and we have spent many a night in this council chamber trying to figure out how it can be developed. Can we get a developer? And it's really good news to know that there were 2 and even 3 bidders. And what was the third bid, Mr. Bakey?
The third bid, I don't actually remember the price. The third bid was from a demolition contractor who really failed to meet a lot of the minimum qualification requirements of the RFP and didn't actually propose a site plan or any actual development. Obviously, as a demolition contractor, we know they were going to take care of that part. But they sort of said, basically said in their proposal, well, we'll kind of do whatever you want, but didn't give us any specifics, and that really is difficult to then review based on that, which is why these two clearly rose above that one among the three.
Okay, I mean, it's certainly, it's nice to get the highest bid, but there are also other factors that have to be considered when moving forward with a project like this. And having activity, creating jobs, developing that property for a good use, commercial use, mixed use, access to develop or bring in more jobs into the parcel of property in South Lowell is all good things. It seems like it's a win-win all the way around, and it's really enlightening to be sitting here talking about not one but two proposals when this property has been such a trouble piece of property for that section of the city. So thank you for your answering the questions.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Present.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noan.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
Thank you. Being after 7 o'clock, we have the utility public hearings. There's a conduit location for National Grid install underground electric conduits on Market Street. I did entertain, open it up for those wishing to speak in favor.
Representative for National Grid, Michelle Stacy. We're proposing to put underground service on Market Street from 297 to an existing pole box, an existing transformer pad that's there to service the new buildings and to maintain our wires.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Entertain then a motion to refer to wire inspector for report and recommendation. So moved by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the city manager's portion of the agenda, communications from the city manager, responses to city council motions, and requests and informational materials. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At one of the meetings, I asked verbally for information from the manager on the breaks that Social/Veterans Club receives in terms of fees. And the manager said he'd provide something, and he has. And Ryan Wynn, who is the executive secretary of the License Commission, along with the city solicitor, Christine O'Connor, provided me with some information regarding the License Commission established in 2007, the following license fees. And it clearly shows the breakdown that I was looking for. And it seems that clubs and Chapter 180 organization members and guests, they pay $3,250 a year for their license fee, whereas restaurants pay $2,750. There's a difference of $500 there. What, Mr.
Go
Mayor?
ahead. I'm just waiting to hear you speak, Councilor.
And this is, I don't know the answer, but the fact is I'm going by what I see here. And I inquired a little bit about that, and I asked, well, why would we not give a break to the veterans groups? And my answer that I received was that these particular veterans clubs, they can hold wedding showers and baby showers and many functions. And I said to myself, well, can't restaurants hold baby showers at their restaurants and wedding showers and things like that? Absolutely they can. And then I know that another thing that was brought up when I inquired about it, that clubs hold memberships, and the club relies on the memberships of the different people that go there, where a restaurant doesn't have that. But if you stop and think, club membership is dwindling in these veterans clubs. People are getting older and they're not going there as the younger men that took pride and went and supported these clubs. And then you look at restaurants and you say, well, they don't have club membership, but they do have a certain clientele that goes to these places quite often. So in a sense, they don't have a visible list of club members, but they do have a imaginary list, not anywhere, of people that frequent their place quite often. They're not members per se on paper, but there's a regular customer that comes in. So I'm going to make a motion, not now, because I know that I can't do that, but there's a $500 difference here. And I think, gee, first of all, these people served our country and came home and established a club for themselves. And I know many of these clubs, like the PAV, Polish American Veterans, these clubs put forth scholarships and give back to the city in so many ways. The VFW, they have the Voice of Democracy contest, of which I'm a judge. They give $500 scholarships to, I don't know, 3 top people and then $250 to the rest. They go above and beyond for what they do privately that we probably don't even know about. So I'm not making the motion now because I know it's not on the agenda to do that, but I'm going to come back next week with a motion to refer this to the License Commission and see if they could put it on their agenda so people could actually go there and speak for themselves as to what they could do to help them. And that's simply what I'm concerned about.
Thank you.
Do you
Mr.
have
Manager?
something to add, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, the comment I was going to make is I'm glad you raised this issue at the last meeting because, frankly, when we went off and looked at the fee structure, we were surprised. Everything you've stated is very accurate, and we're not quite sure how this happened, but the club fees traditionally were generally, if you look at club license fees in other communities, they are less than restaurants. What those are exactly, how they break down, what percentage of restaurant or something of the like. So I think from our standpoint, we think that these should be modified, and there should be a reduction in those fees. I was wondering if maybe there was a mistake made when we did the fee structure, that the restaurants should have been the $32.50 and the club should have been the $27.50. We could go back and research that, but there should be a difference there, that those should be less than the restaurants.
Thank you, I agree. I'm still going to make my motion, should I? Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Newman.
If I may, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to see if we can, with regard to flu information's report by Dr. Singleton, Frank Singleton, with regard to the shortage of vaccines. And his recommendation is that to do more prevention, sort of reaching out, in which he and his department have done, communicating flu information to various nonprofit organizations throughout the city, and done so in several languages, which is very good in doing that and to combat that. If I may, on that, the manager report also, Mr. Mayor, we got report from our city solicitor with regard to the election commission or election department. I'm happy to see there's some work being done, and that the city solicitor, Christian O'Connor, is going to do a comprehensive report on this, and I just have 1 or 2 questions, if I may, as to the timeline. Will this comprehensive report complete before the special election, should there be one for the U.S. Senate?
Yes, that will be done before. I anticipate that this report will be done within the next 30 days, 30 to 45 days.
See. Thank you. The other, Mr. Mayor, one other item is the updated on the detail as to expenditure on the Cambodian towns and that council request and the timeline. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Donza.
Yes, in our packets, there was additional information about dog license revenue. And so I want to thank you for providing that. We had asked for that last week. I know that we generally collect the dog licenses actually this month in January, and it's done for a full year. Part of the report, it had information about other communities, and certainly I think if you walk around the city, there's lots of dogs, probably more than these other communities with less than half our population. So you would think there'd be more registered dogs and generating more revenue, as was stated. There was a mention that maybe the late fee was low, but as I think of it, you're supposed to register the dog in January, and then I assume the fee kicks in if we don't. But what happens if somebody gets a dog in August and they want to register it? I don't know, maybe the clerk knows the answer to that as to, is there a fee for that, or is that just the renewal where there's a late fee?
Mr. Clerk.
Counselor, that if they have to show proof that the dog was recently purchased and with the updates and the getting a dog fix or rabies, whatever it is, but it has to be a recent purchase. And the late fees are charged, it's $5 per month up until June 30th. So if you're late in February, March, April, May, it's $5 per month, and it's tapped off at
Then it's capped
Yeah.
for the rest of the year.
And if a new dog comes in August, you license him. The license is just good to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's always a calendar year registration.
Yeah, always a calendar year.
That's okay, thank you. Because that's one of the things I wanted is, I don't want the late fee, to be a disincentive for people registering their dogs. But so if they can show that they just recently purchased or obtained a dog, there wouldn't be a late fee in that case. All right, very good. But it's certainly something we should look further into, the fee structure, and certainly to have more incentive. I think just about everyone in the humane community would agree that spay and neuter, we need more an incentive for that to be the case rather than not. So we'd probably leave that fee alone and just look at other fees and late fees and make sure that it's still an incentive to register the dog regardless of when in the year. So it might be worth looking further into.
Thank you. Council Lori.
Out of curiosity, why do we tax people with dogs? I get 2 dogs I got to bring in and get a license. Every year I bring them to the vet, they get their shots, they don't leave the house, they're this big, they don't leave the yard unless I take them for a walk. Why do we tax people for having animals?
Well, we don't tax them.
It's a tax.
We charge a fee.
It's a tax. And these dogs, I get 2 dogs, I got to come down and but there's a lot of dogs in the city. And my question is, I bring my dog to the vet, they get their shots, they get whatever, and they stay in their yard. Once in a while I walk them just about every day. Why do we tax people for taking care of animals?
Mr. Manager.
I think generally it's.
Why do you hate animals, Mr. Manager?
I actually love dogs.
Every town does it.
I think we should
we're not the
penalize
only
people
ones.
for having cats. But every town does it, and it's largely to fund the animal control function. In your case, Councilor, you have 2 small dogs that stay in, but dogs generally are larger and can roam and can cause issues, and so there's been a process there set up through the years to charge people for the services that come with having a dog.
I understand that. When I was a mailman for 33 years, And the case of stray dogs over the years is going down. When I was a kid, you opened your door, the dog ran out, it came back at 6 at night, and that's what they did. Today, people don't let their dogs roam. And I understand we have to have a dog catcher, but, you know, to me, it's just a tax to, you know, and how many dogs do we actually detain a year? And if they have a tag, we call the owner and they have to pay a fine. So they're paying for the dog officer. To me, and I know every city and town does it, and we're not the only ones, but I always just...
Well, the other issue that Mr. Moses just raised is that, I'll put it on you, is that we cannot require a dog to have a vaccination, but we can require a license for the dog that, in the license process, requires a vaccination.
They need it, right, well, they have to get a rabies shot to get a license. It's just something I thought over the years was totally unnecessary. And like I say, there's no, the number of stray dogs now is way down over the years. And, you know, and I know I get a discount if they're neutered. They weren't happy about that. And, but it's just one of those things I thought over the years that, you know, to me it's kind of, you know, you pay it because you have to, but, okay, thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. I just had a couple of questions on the reports. There's one report about the election update on the election procedures. It says that there's a meeting scheduled next week. I just wanted to ask if among the many topics, is there going to be a discussion that we've brought up numerous times from different voters around the city? Are we going to discuss maybe changing polling sites from the schools to public buildings, or like, will that be part of the discussion? If they stay in school, we're going to have the kids in school, things like that. Over the years, people have asked many times, you know, about the safety, so I would hope that would be discussed. And
right,
Madam Solicitor.
Thank you. There will be a number of issues discussed, suggested changes as well that we'd be implementing. That's certainly an area that we are looking at. One of the problems of having the schools open under our current system is that we do have Corey laws, and the way we're doing it could raise an issue with respect to access to the building and having members of the public in a school building during the school day with children, and they're not obviously they're not Corey checked. So I anticipate that that's something that working cooperatively with the school department will be able to either address. There will be there are also some areas that we had or some polling locations that I would anticipate we will not be utilizing next time around due to problems that we encountered on that day.
thank you. And then my second question was through you to the manager, on the snow report. We all received a lot of calls last week's storm. Luckily, we didn't get last night's storm. In reading the report, I just had a question about, and it's a pretty good report. I was just wondering maybe if there's do we have the way we attack the storms, do we have a plan B when a storm falls early or late in the early morning like that with the schools? Because it seemed like the biggest problem with last Tuesday's storm was the school buses and kids going to school. So I understand that it's up to the schools whether or not they call school off, and probably we don't have any control over that. But, and I did, you know, I asked around, it was a tough storm, the timing and everything, but I don't know if we have a plan A for typical storm, plan B for a storm that falls when the school's on, plan C when school's off, rush hour. So did that come up in the discussion with the commissioner?
Well, we have plans, and I had a meeting actually regarding our snow operations with, the Commissioner of Snow, as well as Commissioner Bellegarde and Deputy Commissioner Patnod, to go over all of the planning that goes into and the operations, largely focused on some issues regarding sidewalk plowing and the like. But we are very much there's extensive plans for all of our operations as to the routes and the call-ins and how it all operates. I don't think we necessarily have a plan B that we go into if school is on and there's one way there's pretty much a way to attack the storm. In the case of last week's storm, it was a tough storm. We had the forecasts. It's always, I actually spoke with one of the residents who expressed some concerns about the fact that school was in session and the plowing that took place. And as she herself pointed out, you just don't know what nature's going to do. In the case of last week's storm, we were expecting, I think it was somewhere between 3 to 5 inches of snow that was going to fall between the early morning and through the late morning. And as it turns out, so we were out there at 3:30 in the morning doing the pre-treatment, putting salt down on the roads, so that the first flakes of snow would melt, and that would just continue until you got to the point where you probably had, 3 inches on the ground, or 4 inches on the ground, but your roads wouldn't have quite that much because of the pre-treatment. About 5:30, the snow really started to come down. At that point, the decision had already been made to have school. The snow really started to come down. We immediately called in the plows, but they have we have to give them a certain amount of time to get in and go through their routine of getting the trucks out on the road. So the trucks were out on the road by about 6:45, 7 o'clock. At that point, the school buses were already en route. The snow was falling at a faster clip than we had anticipated, or anybody had anticipated. If you look at the neighboring communities in the region, Haverhill in particular had some real problems that day. But if you, the snow is falling, and at that point, the pre-treatment doesn't work quite as well. Because the snow is falling faster than it can melt it. And also the temperature was such that it had lost some of its effectiveness. There's only a small range, which we're trying to work on to extend that range of temperature. But in any event, and it was falling at rush hour, so our plows were stuck in the same traffic as everybody else. And so that was problematic. Last night's storm was an interesting one because last night's storm was supposed to give us 4 to 6 inches of snow, and we ended up going out, doing the pre-treatment, getting ready, having the plows, ready to make the call in the plows, and the snow just stopped. Picked up a little bit more during the day, during the early morning, 1, 2 in the morning, stopped, and that was it. As it was, last night we spent about $25,000 just having the stuff out there ready to go, and in the end, there was nothing. Those are the uncertainties that we have in dealing with New England weather. You never know exactly how much it's going to snow, how quickly it's going to come down, and those are sort of the problems that we encounter in dealing with the weather.
Thank you. Overall, with the way the snow came down, I thought, everybody did a pretty good job with it. Just the complications of the school buses and the traffic, and then we all got the emails. So I was just curious if they had different plans of attack with different types, and then
I'd say we have
help that school was on.
I'd say we have different plans for the type of weather we're seeing, the type of what type of snow, what type of timing we're looking at, but not necessarily, if one of the issues that we talked about is the possibility of, deploying trucks early so that it would be ready to go, so that you could get out. But if we'd done that last night, that would have been a waste of money, a tremendous waste of money. If we had the prior week, if the snow had come as had been predicted, people would have been driving in that 6:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock timeframe with snow flying, but really no snow sticking to the ground at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Council Lowry and then Council Kennedy.
It may have been $25,000. I happened to be out last night. I know I saw Councilor Mendoza at a neighborhood meeting, and the snow was starting to pile up, and they were salting. And I want to thank the employees who were out salting and sanding, and the roads were bare. Now, if they didn't do that, and you had that much snow, even, it would have turned to ice in the morning. And that goes a long way in preventing accidents. We had a subcommittee meeting earlier, and we were talking about the improvements of Mr. Bakey and the Lieutenant Crowley from the police department. We had over 400 accidents less in the city last year. And to be salting and sanding and having clear roads on a night like that, that goes a long way in. Because, I'm thinking and listening to Councilor Leahy and the discussion, I might bring up a motion, maybe as early next week, to have the city contact the insurance companies. If we have that much less accidents a year, what kind of rebate comes back to the consumers of the city? We pay a high rate of insurance in the city, and if we're having less accidents, we're treating the roads as we did last night. We're making improvements in the lights. So that's something I'm going to be looking at for next week. But I want to thank the city, and I want to thank the employees for being out last night. The roads were in great shape. Thank you.
Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one quick question regarding the memo on the elections, and it can either be for the manager or the city solicitor, but do we have a full complement of employees in that department right now? Or do we have vacancies?
We're down one right now. We hope to fill that very soon.
We had a temporary position there. Did that person leave?
That's, the temporary person is still there, but
He's still there?
on a part-time basis.
Okay. So there's really two.
No, well, that's the position that's being filled temporarily right now, that we'll be looking to fill, or in some capacity.
Okay.
There's some ongoing issues there that we're working through.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Entertain then a motion to accept communications placed on file by Councilman Dodson, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next we have the city manager communications. We have an order, 60-day trial for Coburn Street. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendoza. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council order pursuant to the Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Move to approve by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Martin. Roll call, please.
Council Lowry. Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mendoza.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Council Nunn.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning for Article 12, Table of Uses in Section 7.7, narcotic detoxification and/or maintenance facilities. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts by amending Article 12, Table of Uses in Section 7.7, entitled Narcotic Detoxification and/or Maintenance Facilities. Entertain a motion to refer to the Planning Board for a report and recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
And to refer also to a public hearing on March 12, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication, reappoint William Breer, Gail Bartlett, Ron Lastman, Cheryl Quintal, Joseph Mellon, and David Ellingson to the Lowell Commission on Disability.
Move to approve.
Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Roll call, please.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendoza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nun.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a communication. Accept the resignation of Amy Young from the Lowell Commission on Disability. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Mendoza. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager. Request approval of out-of-state travel for the health department. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Council Noon, seconded by Council Laurie. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendoza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Norm.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have reports of the subcommittee. Transportation Subcommittee from January 22nd, 2013. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight at 5:30, we convened the Transportation Subcommittee, and what we looked at was the 10 intersections in the city with the most accidents. At the meeting was Councilor Kennedy and Councilor Mendoza, who are members. Councilor Rita Mercy was there, as well as Councilor Rodney Elliott and Councilor Noon. We discussed the 10 intersections, what improvements the city has been making, and we also heard from Lieutenant Crowley, who was here from the police department, and on questions of what intersections the police were working and why they were there. And the good news is we're finding that many of these intersections, we've already made the repairs. Where we haven't, we've invested money. The council, the last council, this council is investing money for the infrastructure in the city, so the intersections are being fixed. The police department's investing in some of the police being out there, and the interesting aspect was we found out there was probably over 400 less accidents in the city this year as there was last year. So that was the basis of the report, and that's about it.
Thank you. Any discussion on the report? Entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress.
One
Council
more
Laurie.
thing, it has to do with the Transportation Subcommittee also. Thursday night at 6:30 at Lowell General is going to be a public meeting on the Rourke Bridge. So the public's invited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to accept as a report of progress. So moved by Council Mendoza, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Any further announcements, Council Mendoza?
Yes, just for my colleagues on the Finance Subcommittee, I've tentatively scheduled February 5th for the healthcare surplus from our trust fund account to formulate recommendations. I've also scheduled the 19th, 2 weeks later, to go into the personnel ordinance and any modifications we might want to recommend to that. It's still time to change if that poses problems to any of my colleagues. You can just let me know. But that's the plan at the moment.
Thank you. Also, as a point of information, we have a special meeting for the city clerk scheduled for next week, so anybody wishing to add items to the agenda can do so through my office. That would take place at 5:30. Also, in response to Council Leahy's motion to have a special meeting on the master plan, for comments on the master plan, we plan on setting that meeting for 5 o'clock next week. Any further discussion? Next, we have the wire inspector, Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there's a meeting with the school, with that, the subcommittee that has to do with the school committee, that's on the master plan, that I thought was addressing Council Leahy's motion. I didn't realize that there would be another meeting as well.
Council Leahy?
Sure. The meeting that I wanted to have was just to make sure that if there are any recommendations or anything we need to discuss for the final draft that we'd be able to present them at that time, but Mr. Bakey just left, so I thought he'd like to do it by the end of January, but if he can wait till February, doesn't matter to me.
Well, I think the issue is just in terms of incorporating any comments that are made during that meeting into the final draft of the plan. So the hope was to do it by the end of January.
Right.
Right, so
So,
if 5 o'clock next week is fine for a special meeting, then we can schedule it for that time.
sure, it works for me. I don't-
Okay.
Whatever the colleagues say.
Next, we have Wire Inspector, National Grid and Verizon New England Incorporated, request to set one new pole at 945 Middlesex Street. Entertain a motion to accept and adopt the accompanying order by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendoza. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted.
Nay.
One nay.
One nay.
General petitions, miscellaneous. We have the Flood Law Office for Good Times LLC and Weed Street LLC. Request to extend the existing TMU zone to include the property at 12 Weed Street. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department to draft the ordinance. Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Martin. On the motion, Councilor Laurie? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motions. Councilor Laurie requests the city manager expand the existing skating rink in Pawtuckettville to approximately 180 feet. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we really need to look at how many people are going to be using the rink in Pawtuckettville, and if it's getting the use to extend it. It was $4,900, I think, for what we have. So if we have at least one rink in the city where people can go to skate, and again, I want to thank the administration, I want to thank Parks and Recreation. When I brought this motion in a year ago, I was just thinking about flooding the parks as we did over the years. To have this type of facility is just phenomenal. So, and it goes far beyond what I imagined when I first put in the motion. And I think over the years, it'd be nice to have one in different parts of the city. But right now, I think it'd be good if we looked at the use it's getting, how many people are there, and if the need be is to extend it. And I'd also like to ask that we refer this to the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee. And the reason is twofold. One is, what type of use we're getting. But now I'm getting calls, do we have adult-only night, where adults can go out and use it, and things like that. So what type of rules we may look at bringing in and things like this, especially if we extend the park. So I think it's going to be a hit, so I'd like to send it to Parks and Recreation. Maybe we do have an adult night, maybe we do have, different activities there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Councilor Mendoza.
I think it's this one and the next motion are well intended. I just want to make sure, I don't mind referring it and learning more about how successful or not it's been, but I think we need to do that before we commit to doing something next year. I need to know just how useful has it been? Has the weather cooperated, and how much use is it getting before we commit to doing this again next year, and having a better idea what it costs to do this at just one location, and if we're going to replicate it, we're multiplying the costs. And I think it's going to be important that we know that. So I would support referring this to the subcommittee in order to get those answers. But of course, we're not going to have that until the season is over. So I hope we give that enough time to happen.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
I agree. Growing up, skating was what you did in the winter, in large part. But I do want to see how many people do use the skating rink, because I'm not so sure kids have skates these days. So, and maybe this will bring back skating and give kids an opportunity to skate in the city. So, so the city paid the $4,900 plus the labor to put it up, and then, of course, take it down. Lighting at night, is there lighting over there?
There's street lights in that area, it gets some lighting, but we didn't
Okay.
put lights on it.
Okay.
And there is some,
Again, I don't oppose it. If people are going to use it, then great, but before we take that next step, let's make sure that they are using it, and maybe kids will start getting skates for Christmas again, because I know that's what we used to get. But as I thought this through, kids probably haven't been skating for a long time, and they don't have ice skates, so just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Laurie, request the city manager explore an area for a skating rink in the downtown area. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is something a lot of major cities have. I talked about this last week. I'm getting calls from people, if we do put one downtown, cities like Boston and New York actually charge. That wasn't part of my idea. I'd prefer to see it for free. Matter of fact, I was at the Martin Luther King event, Martin Luther King Jr. event at the Songus, and I had said last week that many towns have a park, a common in front of the town halls with ponds that people skate. And someone pointed out, there is a park, a good-sized park, right next to the garage, and maybe that's what you freeze. And I didn't think that was a bad idea either. As I said previously, when I talked about flooding parks, it was the old way to do it. They would just come in, flood the park, they didn't have the rinks. And I said that might not be a bad idea either, right in front of the arena near the school. If we could flood that area, it's big, it's bigger than a rink. And hey, it's downtown, it might bring people in. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Noon. Request the city manager report on legislation requiring utilities to remove double poles within 90 days. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe we have asked the manager to communicate with the delegations. I'm not so sure, but the idea is to have the delegations propose a bill that would establish authority of the city and town to enforce the provisions of Section 34B and Chapter 164 to require the utility company, National Grid and alike, to remove the double pole within the 90-day, and or be fined. The amount is up to the delegation and the lawmaker to put that amount up. But you have to have something, not just say remove it within 90 days, and there's no teeth to it, no enforcement penalty to it. And so it needs to be something to have this company, the National Grid and the like, to do something about it, because I said here day one, Councilor Mendonça, question about how many double poles out there, it hasn't been removed. And till now, it's very little was done. And just about every other night, you get a request from the company to say, hey, add more pole to it. And rightfully so, Councilor Leahy voted nay to it. But it got to be something. It got to be something. We need to get our delegation, ask our delegation for help to have some enforcement to it. And I know we are not the only city and town that that have this problem. Other city and town have the same problem. So maybe recognize that this is a statewide that our lawmakers, rightfully so, put a bill up and vote on it, and to have the this company who is responsible for the double pole to remove it do so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy and then Councilor Mendonça.
Thank you. Excellent motion. I tried calling Representative Golden, and he called me back this morning, this evening when my phone rang. I forgot to shut it off, so I can't listen to the message. But it does raise a good point again. I did look it up on the internet. We fall within the range for our size city with double poles, but some of them just look awful. There's one up on Fairview Street that looks like the wind could knock it down. It's just hanging there. There's no wires. Well, there actually might be phone wires to it. I've asked numerous times on Bridge Street, and thank you, Mr. Marchand, for getting some of the real bad ones removed. But, you know, all over, it's just an eyesore. People in the neighborhoods don't appreciate it. We don't appreciate it as a city to have them on our main roads looking like that. So, you know, there's got to be something more we can do. I don't know what it costs when someone comes in, petitions to move a pole, but, you know, I don't know if, like the one we set up tonight for a hearing on Middlesex Street, I don't know if that's paid for by the developer or who, but, you know, maybe we just need to start charging, if we can, the utilities to double their fees to remove these or add them or whatever we can do. But it just seems ridiculous that they have such a hold on communities and there's nothing we can do. And it's well over 90 days. I mean, it's years on some of these. So appreciate everything that the administration's doing. We'll see what the legislature can do, but, you know, they just need to get the message that towns and cities don't appreciate this, and if there's some way that we can put the pressure on them, we just need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mendoza.
Yes, certainly I think there's already a law in place for, they're supposed to do it in a certain amount of time, but what's lacking is a penalty if they don't, and I think that's what we need, and I applaud Councilor Newman for bringing this forward, that the legislation needs to include a penalty that the local communities can impose when they don't meet that. Also, Mr. Marchand had informed me that he was trying to schedule the utility companies to come before us, so maybe if he could update on his progress with that so that they could answer our questions here in the chamber.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to address a number of points, specifically the most recent by Councilman Mendoza. We do have both National Grid and Verizon scheduled to attend next week's meeting, the 29th, to give a report on the double pole status and the process that is utilized. And I believe there's been some reports that we've given both verbally and written regarding the number of poles that, the double poles that have been removed. But as we know, they also put up double poles. So some come down, some go up. And Mr. Marchand has been dogging them to get more down. It is a problem that a number of communities have raised. There have been legislative efforts, and I've had an opportunity to speak with a couple of representatives regarding this, and there is legislation that's out there that never seems to go anywhere or has not seemed to get anywhere just yet, but we continue to push and see if something can be done to put some teeth into that law. So on the legislative front, we're acting. Locally, we're acting, and we do have the representatives come in next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the manager. The legislation that didn't go anywhere last year, right?
Right.
And was that sponsored by the Mass Municipal Association?
I believe it was sponsored by Mass Municipal,
Okay.
yes.
And so did they refile for this year?
I believe they did. I'll double check on that, but I believe it was refiled.
Okay. And my recollection was that there was a penalty, right?
That's correct.
There was, okay. It would seem to me that, I mean, the utility companies have a pretty good lobby, I would think, on Beacon Hill. So for us to go by on our own and just expect that it's ever going to happen, I don't think is very realistic. But maybe doing it with the Mass Municipal Association and getting cities a little more involved or focused on this issue would work. The only other thing that I could suggest is that the city council adopt a policy that if you come here and you want to do a poll, you have to take 2 down. And then eventually we'd get that way. But in order to do that, that requires a certain amount of fortitude, because you've got to stick with that, and that's not always easy to do. But that is one way to eventually get rid of all of the double poles.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
All those All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Noon, request the city manager provide an update regarding the regional 911 program, seconded by Council Mercia. Council Noon.
The motion speaks for itself, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Noon. Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if I could add to that about 911 and get some sort of information on reverse 911. Seems to me when that water breakage pipe on Powell Street in that area there broke, seems to me a lot of people in the immediate area didn't know what was going on. And why couldn't we have utilized the reverse 911 in that immediate area? So could we get an idea as to when do we use this, or do we never use it, or what, would that have helped?
Well, we have used that in the past on large-scale outages, and there was some contemplation of using it on that as well. Instead, we used other more traditional forms of notifying people, newspaper, the radio station, the web pages, and tried to handle it that way. The unfortunate part of our reverse 911 is it's a system that is very expensive to operate. We actually looked at another system last year that we were hoping would be able to put in place, but there were some problems with the company that was going to do it for us, and so we had to put that on hold. Each time you use the current Code Red system, there's a large cost that goes with each call that goes out. So we haven't used it as much as we'd like to in terms of a notification system, but we are exploring some other options for that.
Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 911 program, that was referred to the Public Safety Subcommittee. If you want, I'll give you a quick preview of what you're probably going to see in this letter. Right now, there's 7 towns, I think, involved. Bellrica and Westford dropped out. There's a lot of questions. The state will fund building the building and buying the equipment. What they will not fund is paying for land. So you need municipal land. Who's going to run it? The sheriff's department, the sheriff came before NEMCOG and talked about running it. Remember, when you get the 911, you're also going to get a lockup. They're going to be locking up prisoners, and they'll do the arraignments from the lockup, and you won't have to bring them to the courthouse. Unfortunately, the sheriffs would like to put it to Bellrica House of Correction. Well, Bellrica is one of the towns that dropped out of the 911 plan. So why put it in Bellrica if they're not going to take part in it? That's one of the other issues. Now, there's several towns involved. There's probably 3 unions that represent those employees, so who's going to represent them? Who's going to get seniority? As I said at the last meeting, we just went through with the fire alarms, putting it out for bid. You're going to have 7 towns with 7 different fire alarm contracts. When do they end? I mean, I don't know when this will come about, if it ever comes about. There's a lot of hurdles, but you'll get the report. But I just want people to know there's a lot of hurdles out there before this goes, and I'm sure you're getting contacted.
Mr. Manager.
The current Council Laurie gave a good assessment of some of the issues that are being talked about. The lockup and the dispatch don't necessarily have to go hand in hand. They can be, you can do one and not the other. You don't have to necessarily do them together, but there are some opportunities there with the regional lockup that has been a constant request for years in the police departments. Right now, the implementation study of looking at how this could work is underway, and it's expected it'll be done sometime in early summer. So that's the sort of the verbal report, but that I'll be putting in writing to you, but that's where that stands.
Yeah, you'll get a much further report from NEMCOG, but there are a lot of hurdles before this goes forward.
Thank you, Councilor. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Request the city manager provide an update on whether the city has brought on a company to handle non-fire signals. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, as the motion reads, can you tell us what the status of this is? It was last May, I believe, that the city put out a request for proposals to to have a private company monitor the non-emergency fire signals. And at the time, the purpose of this was because the dispatchers were receiving between 400 and 500 calls of non-emergency fire signals. And it's a safety issue. It's a public safety issue for these non-emergency alarms that go to the dispatch center, both fire and the police department. So can you tell us why it's like 8 months later, why this has not been awarded? I mean, to me, and I understand they're not alarm signals, they are non-alarm. A battery might have failed in the system of a particular building, or the sprinkler's not operating. But they're coming into the city and they're not being answered. And I think that's a public safety issue when, we have a system that failed, that property owners are not being notified that the system's, not operating, because that's the way, that's what the RFP is set up to do. So, has a company been brought on to monitor these signals, or at least to receive, to monitor them and then notify the property owners what's going on? And if not, why not?
Okay. As the motion requests, provide an update, and I'll be happy to provide a written report to the council on this. But the short answer is, as of right now, that company has not been brought on, primarily due to some cost issues. As you know, it was the intention of the City Council and the administration back when the fire alarm system was put in place to have an annual fee. And there was some seemed reluctance on the part of the City Council based on a motion that was defeated back in September, October, regarding the implementation of that fee, which had some cost implications to the city that we needed to work on. And so that's being looked at now. In fact, we've been having discussions on this over the last month or more, specifically as how we would get through this or deal with this issue, and looking at some different options. And right now, what we're looking at is trying to get some good data as to the number of calls coming in, but I should be able to have a more complete report on this in the very near future.
So when do you feel, Mr. Manager, this is going to be resolved? I mean, what my concern is that calls are coming in right now that are not being answered. I mean, that is.
But they're non-fire calls. They're not fire calls. Fire calls are being responded to.
I didn't say that. That's why I was very specific in what I was trying to describe. But I do still think it's a public safety issue, because calls are coming in, and I mean, if a system has failed and the property owner doesn't know and is not being notified, and there's a fire in that building, that is a safety hazard, and we're placing lives in jeopardy. We know systems fail. That's why this system is being set up. So, and I remember from the discussion, I understand we're not sending the fire department out for these signals, and nor should we, but people should need to know that they are protected and they're safe if there are alarm systems, which we do require, and knowing that if something happens, that it's, again, property owners are going to be notified. When is the city going to address this? I mean, we see time and time again there are fires everywhere, and I just don't want to place anyone's life at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So we're hoping to, again, I actually had a communication with the chief today. We're trying to get that data out, and I hope to have a decision made on that within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, in the report, could you describe kind of the technology here and what's involved? I mean, we say, I have a hard time understanding when we say it's a non-fire signal. Like, how do you know? I mean, it's as basic as that. Maybe certain calls are routed some way, certain lines are dedicated, but I think there's a basic level of understanding that at least I don't have. So, and I think that would be helpful in trying to sort our way through all this.
Right. As I said, the intention was to move forward with that, and that was the purpose of the annual fee that was included within the ordinance. And that was explained to the council back in September as to why we were going to do that, and there was reluctance on the council to support the implementing that fee. And so that caused, in order to make this happen, what we may need to do is come in for some type of budgetary transfer, and obviously it's going to increase the operational cost for the city to do that. And that could be sizable.
So especially if that's the case, then I really think we should know, what these different systems do, what the capabilities are, and why they're needed, and why some are one way and others aren't.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Council Kennedy, second by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. We stand adjourned.